Here are some of the best Lincoln cents sold by Stack's Bowers in March of 2026. In 1990, proof coins from San Francisco were meant to carry their mark, a small s confirming their origins. But on a handful of these coins, it was missing entirely. No mint mark, no correction. The error slipped through unnoticed, sealed into proof sets, and released to collectors who expected perfection. That absence became their story, a modern rarity hiding in plain sight. This example, graded as proof 69 deep cameo, preserves that mistake at near perfect quality. Frosted devices mirrored fields with virtually untouched, and achieved $4,800 at auction for that distinction. In 1910, the Lincoln cent was still new, an experiment in American identity. Proof coins like this were struck not just for commerce, but for collectors. Each coin meant as a deliberate presentation of the design at its finest. Yet even these were not preserved equally. Time, handling, and storage took their toll, which is why the finest survivors feel exceptional. This proof 67 red example retains full original color, softly reflective fields, and nearly pristine surfaces, which saw a final price at auction of $16,800. By 1994, the cent was no longer scarce. It was everywhere. Billions were struck, handled, and spent without a second thought. Survival wasn't the challenge any longer. Perfection now was the goal. Modern minting promises consistency, but not immunity. Contact marks, spots, and mishandling still took their toll, even before the coins left the mint. Which is why the finest examples sit so high above the rest. This piece, one of only 2 at PCGS graded as MS69 red, approaches absolute perfection. Fully red, sharply struck, virtually untouched, which is how a common coin, in theory, can sell for $12,000 at auction. In 1982, the cent changed forever. Copper gave way to zinc, lighter, cheaper, and a quiet admission that the old metal had become too valuable to spend. By 1983, the transition was complete, or so it seemed, but a few copper planchets lingered, trapped in the machinery, carried forward by accident. When they emerged, they bore a new date on an old metal. Only a small handful are known to exist, including this MS62 brown-graded example from PCGS that realized $24,000 at auction. In 1969, the mint struck cents by the millions, but in a single shift in San Francisco, something went wrong, dramatically wrong. The design was doubled, boldly enough to be seen with the naked eye. At first, suspicion followed. Some examples were even seized as counterfeit before the mint confirmed the truth. A genuine mistake, rare and unmistakable. This CAC-approved PCGS MS63 example preserves that striking anomaly in full clarity, a modern error that refuses to be ignored, and became one of the great prizes of the series, sold here for $26,400. In 1944, copper returned to the cent, recycled from spent shell casings as the war pressed on. The era of the steel cent was finished, or so the mint believed. But a few steel planchets lingered, left over from 1943. They slipped back into the presses and were struck with a new date. Only a few dozen are known from Philadelphia, fewest still from Denver and San Francisco. This example, lightly circulated and sharply defined, carries the ghost of that mistake. Graded as PCGS AU50 and sold at auction for $28,800. In 1914, Denver struck its cents without fanfare. No one lined up. No one set them aside. They entered circulation quietly and stayed there until most were worn into obscurity. That neglect became destiny. Unlike other early key dates, the 1914 D was not saved in any significant quantity. It survived merely by accident. The key date that no one noticed. So when one appears like this, PCGS MS65 plus red with full original color, it feels less like a coin and more like an escape. But that escape came at a cost of $31,200 at auction's close. In 1909, a new American identity was struck into copper. Lincoln replaced Liberty, and for the first time, a designer, Victor D. Brenner, stood at the center of controversy. Those three small letters on the reverse, VDB, would not last. Backlash was swift. Within days, the initials were removed. San Francisco had just struck 484,000 coins before the change, instantly creating a rarity that collectors recognized in real time. This example stands near the peak of that census as PCGS MS66 plus red and saw a closing price of $52,800 at auction. San Francisco in 1914 struck 4,137,000 pennies, quite low for the series, nearly all of which were destined for hard use. A few coins were preserved and fewer still survived with their original color intact. Yet here, preservation reaches its absolute zenith. Graded by PCGS as MS66 red. It is overshadowed in name by Denver, but in this grade, the 1914 S becomes something else entirely. The finest chapter of a quietly scarce issue, which changed hands at the auction for $63,000. For more than 2 centuries, the cent endured through upheaval, prosperity, and changing times. But then, in 2025, it suddenly ended. Not quietly, but with a final mark. Omega, the last chapter, struck deliberately. Just 232 coins were issued, each pairing the final circulating cents with a 24-karat gold counterpart. This is set number 82, which was just sold in 2025 for $52,500, graded as MS64 red for the Philly coin, MS65 red for the Denver piece, and MS69 for the gold Omega penny. The set sold here for $69,000. Not a bad return for just a few months. San Francisco in 1926 did not produce many cents, and fewer still survived untouched. Most entered commerce immediately, worn down in a decade defined by motion and use. Collectors learned to accept brown and often well-worn coins as the norm, which is why full red examples like this feel almost improbable. This coin preserves that original mint color, vivid, luminous, essentially as struck, placing it amongst a tiny elite. Graded as MS64 plus red, it sold at auction for $72,000. In 1943, copper was pulled from circulation and sent to war. Shell casings mattered more than pennies. The mint turned to steel instead. Efficient, necessary, and deeply flawed. But a few bronze planchets lingered in the machinery, and a handful of cents were struck in the wrong metal as a result. Accidents of a rushed production. From San Francisco, just 7 coins are confirmed. Most surfaced in pocket change, found by teenagers and ordinary Americans chasing a rumor that never quite subsided. This example is the third finest known and the only gold CAC approved survivor. It still carries sharp details and the quiet glow of its original bronze. A mistake born of urgency, now one of the most enduring legends in American coinage. Graded today as PCGS AU55, it achieved a final price of $456,000 at auction's close. Subscribe to WNN and feel free to watch another video about, let's say, the Stephenville collection of Lincoln cents right here next. For the World Numismatic News, I am Numisman saying thank you for watching, keep collecting, and have a fantastic day.